Hello and welcome to another retrospective video of an iconic adventure game franchise. The topic of this video is the universe's best private investigator. I'm talking of course about the Tex Murphy series. The franchise comprises of several point-and-click adventures along with a few interactive movie games, all of which focus on the hard-boiled character of Tex Murphy. The games in the series take place in an alternative post-apocalyptic 21st century in which a Third World War had occurred, leaving the planet scarred and poisoned by radiation. Most of the games take place in an almost abandoned San Francisco, where citizens live along the less fortunate ones who, lacking the genetic immunity in radiation, have become disfigured or mutants. However, there are other locations portrayed in the franchise like the planet Mars, which humanity had colonized in the game's alternative universe. Tex is born without any genetic defects, making him a normal human, or norm as they are called in the game. He is an old school type with an attitude typical of film noir detectives like Sam Spade, who drinks too much and has a secret crush on the mutating newspaper stand owner Chelsea Bando. The character was created by Chris Jones, one of the founders of Access Software, who developed the first 5 games of the series. Jones was also the actor behind Tex Murphy in all of the series games. Access was then acquired by Microsoft, who wanted to focus on the rest of the company's IPs and especially the Lynx Golf series. Most of the key figures of Access left the company. Afterwards, Big Finish Games, an independent studio formed by ex-members of Access with Chris Jones among them, took over the Tex Murphy franchise. Amazingly, the character of Tex Murphy did not have his debut in a video game. The founders of Access Software, Bruce Carver and Chris Jones, began by creating their own home-based movie studio named Carp Studios. They made some movies using an old camera, but then, driven by Carver's interest in computers, started producing software for the Commodore 64 that had just came out. After a couple of successful products like the Sprite Master and Beachhead game, they started shifting their interest towards the software production, forming Access Software. Still though, their interest in movies made them keep writing scripts. One of them was Plan 10 from Outer Space, where the character of Tex Murphy was introduced. The team started filming the script into a movie in 1987, but after several problems along the way, production stopped and they were left with an unfinished mess. After multiple discussions and led by the success of Access Software products, the decision was made to make that script into a video game. Mean Streets is the first game in the Tex Murphy series. It is a graphic adventure game developed and published by Access Software for MS-DOS in 1989 exclusively in North America and later ported for multiple other systems like the Commodore 64, Amiga and Atari ST. Tex is hired by Sylvia Linsky to investigate the death of her father. Dr. Carl Linsky was a professor at the University of San Francisco working on a top-secret project that he gave no information about to anyone. His daughter Sylvia, concerned over the works of her father, kept asking him about his project but to no avail. Dr. Linsky was last seen falling from the Golden Gate Bridge, a case that the police quickly dismissed as suicide. Sylvia suspects murder linked to her father's work and her only option is to hire a private eye. She approaches Tex Murphy, offering him some initial leads along with a hefty sum to help him get started on the case. The game plays from a third-person perspective with the player guiding Tex into a two-dimensional world. In the beginning of Mean Streets, there is also a 3D scene in which the player navigates Tex's flying car. That was done to showcase Access Software technology of the time, first introduced in the company's previous game, the 3D flight game Echelon. After that scene, the game changes into a 2D point-and-click adventure game. Below the game's action screen there are several available verb commands that the player can choose and then select items on the environment or inventory to perform the action. The game's interface resembled a lot that of the Labyrinth video game, the first ever Lucasfilm adventure game. Locations in the game have their own unique 4-digit codes that Tex can enter in the computer of his speeder flying car. Then the player can select to either navigate the speeder towards the destination or let the autopilot handle it. There are also some fighting sequences in the game in which it switches to side-scrolling. Mean Streets was among the first computer games to utilize 256-color VGA graphics and also allowed for the use of digital audio to be played without the need for an external sound card through the use of Access's Real Sound technology. The same technology was also used in another adventure game series, Spellcasting by Legend Entertainment. The game was praised by fans and critics for its graphics, story, and the Text Murphy character. It was also referenced by multiple media of the time for its cutting-edge technology. It was a commercial success, leading to the team to start developing a sequel. Martian Memorandum is a graphic adventure game developed by Access Software and originally released in 1991 for the MS-DOS. It is the direct sequel to Mean Streets and the second game in the Text Murphy series. The game takes place several years after the events of Mean Streets. Tex Murphy is broke and desperately needs a new case. He is approached by the business mogul Marshall Alexander, owner of Terraform Corporation, which controls most of the industry on Mars. The tycoon wants Tex to locate his daughter Alexis, who had gone missing, taking something important with her, which Marshall does not reveal to Murphy. Contrary to the previous game in the series, Martian Memorandum is a pure point-and-click adventure played from a third-person perspective. There are no flight scenes, chases, or fighting in this game. Focus is given mostly on interrogation and path-defining player choices rather than item-based puzzle solving. Verb commands are used to interact with the environment, while interrogating suspects usually involves selecting conversation options. The user interface is similar to Mean Streets, with a selection of verb commands arrayed below the game's action screen. New locations are unlocked when collecting relevant information, while conversations are now performed in a dialogue tree manner. Martian Memorandum featured high quality for the time VGA graphics and real sound technology that again allowed for digital audio to be played by the computer speakers. It was the first in the series to introduce digitized characters and full motion video that went on to become a standard for the franchise. Critics and fans praised the game's story, graphics and sound. The technology utilized was again cutting edge, bringing to Martian Memorandum publicity from mainstream media. Its sales were similar to those of Mean Streets, further establishing the franchise and the Tex Murphy character among adventure games fans. Under a Killing Moon is a 1994 point-and-click adventure interactive movie video game developed and released by Access Software for the MS-DOS and macOS. It is the third game in the Tex Murphy series of adventures and a sequel to Martian Memorandum. The events of the game take place in 2042 in a world ravaged by World War III, where major cities have been destroyed and rebuilt under a poisoned sky by radiation. Tex Murphy is found broke again and devastated from his divorce with Sylvia Linsky, the character introduced in Mean Streets. He is approached by the mysterious Countess Renier, who employs him to locate a missing statuette. Tex, struggling to make ends meet, accepts the case without asking too many questions, unaware of the greater conspiracy behind the missing item. He will find himself in direct confrontation with the mysterious and secretive cult called the Brotherhood of Purity. The story of Under a Killing Moon is much deeper and darker compared to that of the previous games. That was the result of a change in direction of the series when the company decided to approach the third game with a more movie-like production level and budget. To do so, they hired the professional writer Aaron Connors to write the script. Connors focused on expanding the world setting the games take place and provide a deeper background on the Tex Murphy character. The game also marked a change in its gameplay compared to its predecessors. It is played on a first-person perspective with emphasis on exploration and self-contained logical puzzles. The player can rotate the camera, change the viewing angle, zoom in and out, etc. It is even possible to look for clues underneath desks, chairs, etc. The evolution of technology allowed for combining live-action characters with pre-rendered 3D backgrounds. The game featured real-time 3D graphics that were exceptionally detailed for the time, utilizing enhanced 640 by 480 resolution. Dialogues were not represented in dialogue tree form but presented options to the player regarding Text Murphy's response, adding to the mystery of what he will say when selecting each option. All the above required an extended production budget, and Under a Killing Moon was developed over the course of 4 years, costing more than $2 million. The game's cast comprised of established Hollywood actors, and the team even brought James Earl Jones on board to act as the game's narrator. The combination of full motion cutscenes with an advanced 3D visual world also led to the games requiring 4 CD-ROMs when released. Under a Killing Moon was met positively by fans and critics, praising its character, story and technology. The game's visual especially shocked the industry with their high levels of detail and production quality. It sold more than 400,000 copies, smashing all previous Access Software records. The Pandora Directive is a graphic adventure game produced by Access Software and released in 1996 for the MS-DOS. It is the 4th game in the Text Murphy series and the sequel to Under a Killing Moon. The story takes place 2 years after the events of the previous game in the same location of post-World War III San Francisco. Text Murphy is hired by Gordon Fitzpatrick to investigate the disappearance of his friend Thomas Malloy, a prolific scientist. While Text searches for clues on the missing scientist, a series of murders take place, entangling him in a complex conspiracy. He discovers that there are multiple scientific organizations involved along with the political establishment and government agencies like the National Security Agency. The Pandora Directive plays just like Under a Killing Moon from a first-person perspective. Players explore the environment and can click to examine objects or interact with them using a variety of verbs. They can also gather and combine objects in their inventory or the game world to solve puzzles. There are also numerous self-contained logic puzzles in the game. Dialogues reintroduced dialogue trees to the game, but there is also a list of universal topics that Text can ask any character on. Text has 3 kinds of answers at his disposal during some important dialogues. Depending on what kind of approach the player chooses for, subsequent plot events will be influenced. The Pandora Directive was among the first adventure games to feature a branching story that depended on the player's choices and multiple endings. There are 6 possible endings for the game. It also provided 2 difficulty levels, Entertainment and Game Player's Mode. On Entertainment Mode, hits were available and the player could bypass certain puzzles. A total of 1,500 points were available on Entertainment Mode. On Game Player's Mode, no hints were available and puzzles could not be bypassed. A total of 4,000 points were available on Game Player's Mode, as bonus points were available to those who solved certain puzzles in an allotted time or within a certain number of moves. The game uses the same engine as Under a Killing Moon, but with even enhanced visuals. The use of full motion video is again a key aspect of the game, along with real-time 3D graphics. There are numerous returning actors for the main characters and cutscenes, along with new ones that join the cast like Tanya Roberts. The theme of the game is generally darker compared to its predecessor. As Aaron Connors, the writer of the games, had stated, Under a Killing Moon was more of a comedy with dark elements, whereas the Pandora Directive had an Indiana tone to it. The Pandora Directive was met with mostly positive reviews from critics. There was praise for the game's visual, story and overall technology, but heavy criticism on the puzzles being too difficult and sometimes lacking logic. Its sales were a fraction of what Under a Killing Moon had achieved, as the Pandora Directive managed to sell 120,000 copies. Still though, the game being a Text Murphy sequel had its own dedicated following. A remastered version was announced in 2021, but we still expect more information on when the game is going to be released. It is being developed by Big Finish Games, the studio that was formed by ex-members of Access Software who managed to reacquire the rights of the franchise. Text Murphy Overseer is a graphic adventure game produced by Access Software and released in 1998 for the Microsoft Windows. Even though it is the 5th game in the Text Murphy series, it is mostly based on the story of Mean Streets, as Text recounts the events of that case to his girlfriend Chelsea Banto. The setting is again the post-World War III San Francisco in 2043, shortly after the events of the Pandora Directive, but the game takes place in two time frames, one in 2043 and one in 2037, when the events of Mean Streets took place. The events of the latter are presented in a flashback form. However, as the events of Mean Streets are recounted by text, there are numerous plot differences with the original game, along with more details that were not present there. The gameplay follows the standards set by Under a Killing Moon and the Pandora Directive. A combination of full motion video and real-time 3D graphics is again present in Text Murphy Overseer. Access Software had created a new engine for this game in order to accommodate Windows technology for the fully explorable games world. The dialogue system from the previous two games returns also, along with the two difficulty levels, the Entertainment Mode and Gamer Mode. The initial plan of Access Software for the series' fifth game was to create an original and true sequel to the Pandora Directive, tentatively titled Trance. However, Intel approached the company and asked the game to be bundled with a new Intel chip that could showcase its technology. Access Software shifted to the development of Overseer, which, due to the reused material from the first game, would require less time to produce. During development, Intel dropped their plans for the bundle, but Access Software continued with the project as they were nearing completion. They had a cliffhanger ending in the game that would have tied it to the sequel Trance, which was then expanded to 3 games with the working titles Change, Polarity, and Trance. However, Access Software was sold to Microsoft after Overseer's release, and any plans for Text Murphy were put on hold due to Microsoft's focus on other Access IPs like the Lynx Golf games. Text Murphy Overseer was the first game to have a version specifically developed for DVD-ROM. The initial release had in the package 2 copies of the game, one in 5 CD-ROMs and one in a single DVD-ROM that eliminated disc swapping and had better quality full-motion video. The game received mostly positive reviews but was criticized for recycling older material and not standing up to its predecessors Under the Killing Moon and the Pandora Directive. After the release of the game and the events that followed Access Software acquisition by Microsoft, most of the company's founders and members of the creative teams behind Text Murphy left. Chris Jones and Aaron Connors made several attempts to secure the rights from Microsoft. They achieved that in 2008 and formed a new studio, Big Finish Games, along with other members of Access Software. The 6th game in the Text Murphy series, tentatively titled Project Fedora, was announced shortly after. Tesla Effect, a Text Murphy adventure, is the result of Project Fedora. It was developed by Big Finish Games and released by Atlus in 2014 for the Microsoft Windows and OS X. It is the 6th game in the Text Murphy series and the direct sequel to the Pandora Directive. The game is set in San Francisco in 2050, 7 years after the cliffhanger ending of Text Murphy Overseer. Text Murphy had changed into a cold-blooded man who would take any job as long as it pays. The game starts with Text being attacked while on his office on Chandler Avenue. When he wakes up, he has no recollection of the past 7 years and of what had happened to his girlfriend Chelsea. He embarks on a quest to find her and to locate the people that had attacked them. During the course of his investigation, he will become entangled again in a vast conspiracy that has some ties to the research of the 20th century inventor Nikola Tesla. The gameplay of Tesla Effect is quite similar to that of Under a Killing Moon and the Pandora Directive. It is played from a first-person perspective as players navigate 3D environments to gather items and clues and information that progress the story. Dialogue trees and branching conversations are also present along with logic puzzles. As with the case of the Pandora Directive, Tesla Effect has multiple story branches depending on the player choices. The game offers several different endings, 2 difficulty modes, and a built-in hit system. Tesla Effect, a Text Murphy adventure, began development under the working title of Project Fedora. The newly formed studio followed the success of other projects like those by Tim Schafer's Double Fine Productions and decided to utilize crowdfunding. They had launched a Kickstarter campaign that managed to reach its goal in 7 days and began development of the 6th Text Murphy game. Several actors from the previous games returned while the studio announced that they would utilize a new engine for the game, the widely popular Unity. The game was finally released in 2014 with mixed reviews. It is somehow ironic that most of the criticism came for the game's visuals and technology, two aspects that were crucial for the success of the franchise's previous games. As was the case with the two previous games, a Tesla Effect novel was also published shortly after the game's release. As in Under a Killing Moon and the Pandora Directive novels, the Tesla Effect one was again written by Aaron Connors. The Poisoned Pawn was to be the 7th game in the series. It started as a fan project, but its popularity among fans led the Big Finish Games to jump in and make it an official sequel. Aaron Connors returned to write the script for the game, whose title was the one originally selected for the 5th game of the series before being changed to Overseer. However, multiple problems in the development team caused delays to the project until it was officially cancelled. On April of 2021, it was announced that the game is cancelled for the time being due to creative differences. That was the full history of the Tex Murphy series, a franchise that had its humble beginnings during the early years of adventure game development and then evolved to become one of the most memorable and remembered series of the genre. Unfortunately, as was the case with a lot of adventure game studios, the initial team was disbanded, and even though we saw an official sequel by a newly formed studio, the future of Tex Murphy seems dark and abandoned like the world the game takes place in. Let's hope that the recent rise in popularity of adventure games and the upcoming remaster of the Pandora Directive will reignite the interest for this beloved character. Do not forget to watch my many retrospectives on iconic franchises like Loom, King's Quest, Space Quest, Gabriel Knight and more. You can also find my 2-hour documentary on the rise and fall of the genre. If you like the content of my channel, please consider supporting it by subscribing and turning on the notifications for it to know when a new video is up. You can also consider supporting me by becoming a member of my YouTube channel. There is one membership tier and you will have a lot of benefits like exclusive updates on upcoming videos, you get to watch each new video earlier, you get to decide the topic of upcoming videos, and also member exclusive giveaways that will follow. We will have the next adventure game video soon. Thank you all for watching.